Alrighty. Welcome to my show. That's right. I'm doing a quick show. I'm calling it Words of Wisdom for Weddings. And of course, we have our trusty dusty producer, which on my screen is off left bottom, Howie Darkstar, the man who is responsible for not only my great light shows, but several other DJs' great light shows. If you are looking for any sort of DMX help, and the only way to get true help, I feel, is to hire somebody. So I actually hired Howie, which meant that he was not an employee, but a vendor that I paid to get information from. Because I don't think it's fair. You know, Howie, I know you get this. I get a lot of like, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm happy to give you some quick question and answer stuff. But there's a point where, hey, Howie, can you make it so that I look better as a professional and make more money? Of course I can. But I think the key word in that conversation and sentence was money. So if you would care to hire Howie or see if he's a good fit for you and what you need to do with DMX lighting, I would certainly look into that. But this is normally a spot where Brian and I and Howie would be doing a show, and we've already got that show. So this is a secondary show. And I just wanted to do a quick 20, 30 minutes on what I call Words of Wisdom for Weddings. I've been doing weddings since the mid-90s. And there's a lot of times where things are consistent, but they're always in flux and in change, it seems. So let's start. You're at your wedding. Some things that I do. Example, when I go up at my weddings, I usually put a lavalier mic on the groom and on the officiant. And I have a couple things that I do at my weddings. When I go to the groom and the officiant, I open up, I use Gen 4 Audio-Technica 3000s that I swear by. I open the body pack and I flick them on. And I show full battery and that the mic is on. I then turn it off, put it in their pocket, tuck the lavalier under the lapel of their jacket, because I have dead cat windscreens on them. So they're kind of fluffy and big, but I still put them underneath because I find with the wind, it works better. Now, in the groom, I like to go on his right side because he's standing looking at his bride with the crowd on his left and the officiant on his right. So if the wind blows, I don't want it to come into the jacket. So the hope is it will go over.
Now, that's words of wisdom there.
You know, and again,
also, it makes for a good photo op because the side shot, you don't get the dead cat in the picture. So that's great. Good tip.
So want to hide that. I show them that it's full battery. So what I'm doing is now I'm reassuring them, okay, so he knows what he's doing. It's full battery. But when I put it in his jacket, I always say, do you have a cell phone on you? And he will say, I'm not going to have it with me at ceremony. Okay, great. I need all the groomsmen to either shut them off or put them on airplane, because one venue in particular is kind of remote. So phones are constantly looking for a signal that can interfere with a wireless microphone. So, you know, with the groomsmen, I ask that it goes on airplane or gets shut off, and they're always compliant. And I tell them in front of the groom, if there's an interference with the microphone, it can be from a cell phone, which I can't control. So at least the phone's nearby. Side note, I never have my phone on during the ceremony. I turn it off right before, I turn it on right after, because I'm standing next to the two transmitters, or receivers. I don't want to be an issue. If the officiant's using an iPad, his phone, notes, her notes, whatever, same speech. Please make sure it's on airplane or turned off. And they rarely know this. So it's always, again, words of wisdom for the client. I wear an earpiece at one venue because there's a lot of corners, meaning I can't see where everyone is when processionals start to play. So the owner of the venue, in helping everyone coordinate, gives everyone an earpiece. So I have an in-ear, so I can say, hey, the groom, the groom can walk now. Here's his song, whatever the case might be. One thing I started doing there a couple of years ago, when I go to the groom and the officiant, traditionally 5 minutes before the wedding begins, I will pull their body packs, turn them on, show them they are on. Because the way the audio techs work, they have a door you have to open and then flip up an on-off switch.
Right.
Close the door. So you can't turn it off unless you went back inside the door. Turn it on, show him your mic is live, but the volume is turned off at the board. Put it in his pocket. Same with the officiant. I then get on my in-ear to everyone at the venue, and there's 10 people with in-ears, and I say, the groom and officiant's mics are live. Again, the groom and officiant's mics are now live. Coordinator knows, the officiant, the groom, myself, the on-site, everybody knows the mics have been put in, the mics have been turned on. I then go to the board where I have the mics turned not only off, but the volume all the way down. Once they come out, the protocol is this. I do not turn mics on until the bride is at the top of the aisle where the officiant can say, everyone please stand, please rise if they need to. And the secret is this. Years and years and years ago, I had a live mic at a ceremony, and the officiant was a friend who said to the groom, she looks effing awesome.
Oh, and that
she
came
got to
out
the top of the aisle, and that went live. Now, this is a lesson for new DJs and old DJs alike. When you have a microphone, always, always, always treat it like it's on. I do a happy hour show with Pioneer DJ. I think our second or third show we did, we were running half an hour late, and it was production issues around me. I'm sitting in the chair, I'm good to go, I'm ready, let's go. And the producer did not live my mic yet. So I said, we got to get going. This S is getting old. Come on, people are waiting. Let's move it. And I'm doing all this. Come to find out that he did live my mic. So that all went out there. I didn't care. I got called out on it. Someone said, hey, did you know you said that? I'm like, what did I say? You said this S is getting old and we need to get going. Okay. That's what I said. You know, I didn't give away trade secrets. I didn't put anyone down. But I was getting frustrated. So with microphones for ceremonies especially, approach them like they're always on. Show the client and the officiant, groom, whoever's wearing one, that it's fully charged. Because again, later on, if there's an issue with the mic, you've done your due diligence. You've shown the mics. Hopefully you've tested the mics beforehand. This is a wasteful thing, but this is one way to endear yourself with the venue. Every event, I use fresh batteries. It's just a thing I've always done. So even though this body pack may be on for 30 minutes, and we all know in our industry, AA batteries in a body pack will last hours. I still will replace those batteries as part of my doing business. Well, instead of throwing them away, most venues where I work have those flickering candles that run on AA batteries. So every time I get done with the ceremony, if I pull the batteries, I give them to the venue. The venue's appreciative. They put them in their candles. They don't go to waste. Everybody wins. It's, you know, one of those things.
Well, while you're on batteries, let me give you and our audience some words of wisdom. I use fresh batteries too because, hey, you don't get do-overs for a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Now, what I would do is I have a battery tester, and it looks like a caliper, and it will test 9-volt batteries. It'll test batteries like this, whether it's a AA, AAA, whatever, and it just comes down and it'll give you a reading. And I always test even the new batteries because it's manufacturing. They make them at very high speed. It's not uncommon for you to get a dud. Can you imagine your mic takes 2 batteries, one's a dud. What do you think is going to happen? So I test them.
And that's the thing. I mean, the old body pack I had, it was red or green light. There was no battery indicator. The new one shows the strength of the battery at the source. It also shows it at the receiver. So I can look at the receiver, and if I have two RF lines, I know I'm live. And if I have 4 check lines underneath, I know the battery's live. So I find it to be very good. And I had a wedding where one of the battery packs slipped down 1 notch. It wasn't audible. I didn't notice it, but I saw it. And, you know, I'm in the Southwest area, Southern California. My ceremonies, for the most part, I think the longest ceremony I've done in the last few years is probably 30 minutes. I mean, they're all 15 minutes long. They're 12 to 20, but 15 is a sweet spot. So you're fine. I had issues with my old 3rd gen Audio Technica. And the issue was that it was old enough that the frequency bands had changed. So it was the old band, which means I had to update it. It wasn't the microphone's fault. It was the fact that I was in a remote area and all that. And when I did my mic test for the ceremony, it started to cut out. So I grabbed a 50-foot XLR mic cable. I plugged it in as a backup. I ran it up there. I looked around and thought, let's not find out, and ran a wired 50-foot lead up behind everybody and did it with a wired microphone and told them there's a wired microphone. You want to take it out and talk, you can, but there's a wire. It's only got so much distance. Then during the toast, I had the mic about 15 feet from the receiver, and it cut out on me as I was announcing that we were going to start the toast. Like, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to the toast. And I said, did the one finger to the crowd, walked 15 feet, grabbed the 50-foot cable, SM58, and off I went. Now, I'm going to see if I can do this live in the world of film where you can still hear me, but you can't really see me. And I'm just going to show you, I've got the backpack, as I always have. But one of the things that I've notoriously started to carry in here is this. This is a brand new, Howie will know, SM58.
Yes.
If you go to my YouTube channel, jayvj.com, jayvj.com, I did a video. I bought this year, and it's kind of mind-blowing because I paid $99 for it. And I have another one of these that I bought 22 years ago, and I paid $99 for it. So it's one of those, like, how am I paying the exact same price 22 years later? But even though the first one is perfect and works, I figured now with COVID, to make everyone comfortable, I would always run 2 mics. So my wireless handheld for toasting later in the night gets put on a stand. I bought I will have to look it up. I want to say, and Howie, if you know, help me out. I think it's an OnStage, but it has this squeeze grip so that I can up and down it super fast. And I tell all the toasters ahead of time, you're going to toast from a mic stand because it's right next to the table, so it's awesome for photos. And it frees up your hands so you can have a drink and your phone or notes or whatever you want. But please don't take it off the stand. I started this a couple years ago because I would get, the constant, hey, everybody, I just want to tell you I've been going over, I talked to, it's like the old altar boy days, like, it's a microphone, and it really has alleviated a lot of problems. But again, I used COVID and said, it has a new windscreen on it for each toaster, and I don't want you touching the mic. It's that way you're not getting near anything. And when I tell my clients that, they're 100% behind the idea. 100% of my clients have said, that's awesome. And when I've had the occasional groomsman who's like, yeah, I was going to kind of wander. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen tonight. It's going to be on the stand. And you're just going to talk to it. And it'll look better for you. It'll relieve you of the stress of trying to walk around and sound good. And the beauty of it is, not once has anyone gone up and done, is this thing on? But when you hand them a mic, they all like to go like this. And I had one guy do it. And I said, you just heard, and I literally was a foot away from him. I go, I just was talking. That's the same mic. Well, I didn't know if it was on. I'm like, yeah, but you doing this would be like me banging you in the ear and go, can you hear me? And the table next to me heard me. They were like laughing. But it was like, why are you banging on an expensive microphone? Just, we're professionals, you know. Do people do a lot of wedding toasts where the mics aren't on? I don't know. But it's such a huge part of the wedding that the redundancy of batteries, the putting phones on airplane, the telling the client your mic is charged, ready, and on, so that when they get up there, if anything goes awry, you're much less likely to look like the issue because of all of the due diligence that you've shown your clients. And I think that's where weddings have kind of changed a little bit. You know, I often hear like, wow, this is so different than the last wedding I went to, or you're doing a lot more of this, this, and this. I want to make sure I get hired again. You know, and I think part of that security blanket of doing a great job is knowing not only your gear and how to utilize it and use it throughout the night, but also making your clients feel rest assured that you're the professional. You know, I see a lot of Facebook and Instagram questions about how many mics and how many speakers and can I do this event with this speaker? I don't think that's a qualified question. I don't know what the venue is. I've done venues where I had 75 people and I could have used 5 more speakers because it's in a room that's set for 800 people. And it's, you know, they're not sitting in front of me. They're sitting over there. So I'm casting sound, you know. The other night, my wedding the other day, I was on the side of an outdoor venue with a dance floor 25 feet off to my right with a tree and bushes, so I couldn't see half of the dance floor. So once it came to dancing, I had to turn my 2 speakers and point them towards the dance floor. Not optimal. And it would be very easy for someone to say, well, why didn't you just put the speakers closer to the dance floor? Aha, that's a great question. The dance floor being 25 feet to my right, guess what? The group was 30 feet to my left. So I was in this kind of no man's land. And at the end of the night, I said to the coordinator, you ever consider putting the DJ on the corner of the dance floor? He's like, no. I'm like, that would seem to make the most sense to me because then I'm looking at the crowd. I'm on the floor. Everything I need and want is right here. I can put the speakers at the front or back, and either way, they're going to hear me over there. So I think there's a lot of those little things. Talking about where you're placed, Howie. I'm sure you've had to run into this. I very politely ask my clients if they wouldn't mind sending me a breakdown of the room. I'd like to see a schematic if I could, and just where they plan on putting me because I want to make sure the bride and groom have the best experience. What's your take on that one?
If at all possible, if it's not too far away, I will do a site inspection with the client and the coordinator there, and then we can come to an agreement. Hey, you know, this is the floor plan. I would recommend we do this. You know, I've been doing a lot of this, you know, because we've all been stuck in the corner with, you know, 4 tables in front of us, and then they're complaining it's too loud, and the people on the other side, hey, we can't hear. I find head it off at the pass if you can. And another thing that I do is I always reach out. I ask, who's your photographer? You know, could I get his number? And what I do then, I said, look, I'm going to help you get some great photo opportunities. That's my job, is to make sure that the lighting is correct and the sound is, you know, correct for whatever we need. And what I've done is, no matter what planning app you use, or if you just use Google Docs, it doesn't matter. I always have that timeline. And what I do is I make an abbreviation where I have my own hard paper copy, and then I have it on an iPad. Some people, like Jimmy, he has it right on his iMac, where he can run down like what song to play, what are you going to say,
Right.
But I don't put that on the 3x5 file cards. I make 3x5 file cards with just the time, and then I explain to the wedding party, the photographers, anybody else involved, like the caterers or the venue manager, hey, we might be a little bit late on some things, but this will be the order of things so that, hey, when the photographer, this is the general time when you should be in place. People go out to smoke or they go to do a phone call. They're in the bathroom, just so they know they have that. And I give it to each one of them. And then with the photographer, I always tell them, I will give you 5 to 10 minute heads up when we're going to do first dance or cake cutting. I would guarantee you that. And it's been really successful for me. Jimmy and I had a guy we worked with, and we gave him that 10-minute heads up that, hey, in 10 minutes. And then we would make sure everybody was there. He was over the moon. At the end of the night, he goes, I have never worked with two better professionals in my life. I was like, wow. Now that guy's likely to recommend me.
We're creating moments that they're going to capture. We're a huge part of that picture.
Absolutely.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
I had one earlier this year, and it was 2 photo, 2 videographers. So I had the team of photo in one spot and then the videography team in the other spot. And I'm playing dinner music and I'm doing my thing, running around, and they're off eating. And I told the photographers, hey, we're doing the toast in 5 minutes. And there were some logistics involved because Netflix was there filming. Because it was for a show on Netflix called like Cake Squad or something like that. This was a wedding a while back. And I told one of the videography team that I saw. But again, so now understand, I've got 10 people that are involved in filming in some or taking photos in some respect. But I didn't tell the one videography guy. You would have thought that I asked him to leave the venue while we did the wedding. Dude, I can't believe you didn't come get me. I'm like, and I said, wow, man, I told the other videographer. Yeah, but you didn't tell me. And I said, I'm really sorry, man, but that's just not my job. I told your team I've got Netflix breathing down my neck because they're on a time crunch. I've communicated really well with you today. It's like, yeah, but this was something like, I'm like, where were you? He's like, well, I was overeating. I'm like, well, that's again, like, I'm sorry. There's a point where you want to work well and play nice, but there's also a point where you kind of have to stop and say, the clients have hired me to do this. And as part of that, I will try my best to make sure that everyone else is in line, but we're not in charge of the other vendors. So if the time allows and you can get them, you should. But, I think it's more important, in my opinion, Howie, to make sure the dad's there. Make sure the mom's there. Because let me tell you, you don't want to start your toast with moms and dads out of the room. So I always say to the bride and groom, we're going to do the toast in 5 minutes. Best man, maid of honor. I don't see the best man. Do you know where he is? And are your mom and dad here? I want the important people in their seats for these toasts. So, there is that give and take, but whenever possible, get the vendors, and they are appreciative as they should be. But like I said, this one incident that I can think of in 25 years where you would have thought I sent the guy on a wild goose chase. And I said, dude, I'm sorry, but I've got 6 people from Netflix here and they're coming at me every 3 seconds. I've got 2 coordinators. I mean, I've got a wedding of 85 people with like 18 support staff. I mean, it was a bit dramatic, and it worked out fine. Everyone got what they got, but it's communicating. It's asking the bride and groom, are they okay with doing something, and understanding that they may not know. And as you said, the timeline to me is just an outline for a flow.
Right.
The best weddings flow. I don't ever want to be at a wedding, ever, ever, ever. And I was in my early days, I admit this, where people came up and said, hey, man, when are we going to dance? This is getting boring. I'm like, soon, I hope. Oh, wait, I'm the DJ. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. When the last table is served at a buffet or even plated,
yes,
I tell the bride and groom, I want to do something in 15 minutes. The last table just got their food. Oh, really? I'm like, yeah, which means the first table got their food 35 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago.
And they're done. Yes.
And they're done.
Absolutely.
So before we lose the room, this is the flow of events. And the other thing is, Howie and I have timelines, we have schedules. Don't be afraid to break them. Like if you're doing a honeymoon / money dance at 8:30 and you notice a trend of people leaving at 8 and you're just doing open dance, don't be afraid to tell the bride and groom, I think we should do the honeymoon dance now.
Right.
You know? A lot of what we do at the wedding is not only reading the crowd, but it's reading the room. And by reading the room, what I mean is understanding how things are going to ultimately play out that night. I would say if you're a wedding DJ and you've got a wedding where you look at the crowd and go, I don't think they're going to dance a lot. I don't think we ever feel that way because we don't want them to dance. I think we feel that way because in our judgment, this crowd isn't exhibiting the signs of a great party. They could still have a great time.
I've had that, and I did exactly what you suggested, where I said, hey, I think we might want to change things up. It's a well-known fact that I'm a recovering Baptist, and I was doing a Baptist wedding, and they don't typically dance, and that was the case. And I was like, well, people are leaving. You might want to do some of these activities now. And it worked out for them. And it was what it was. And they seemed happy with it. The guests were happy. And, it is what it is sometimes.
I'd love to see in the comments what happens when I make this statement. I work for the bride and groom. I don't work for the group.
Right. Oh, don't get me started on that.
I work for the bride and groom. At the end of the night, the people I need to make the happiest are the bride and groom. Now, the best way to make them happy is for them to look back, as I tell them, to have no regrets, to have done everything they wanted in a manner they wanted. Brian and I have had this discussion where he feels I overpromised. And I try, believe it or not, to underpromise and overdeliver. And by that, I mean, I tell them what the agenda is going to be. And I say to them, with the three of us sitting here at Starbucks or on a Zoom or on a phone call, the dynamic's a little different than what it will actually be that night. But understand, the goal is this, that you have the best wedding you can have. Yes, I would love to play some dance music and have people respond positively and dance. But I also understand there are people that may not be in the dancing mode. I find, for me personally, Friday night weddings tend to do that. Sunday night weddings, where they're not a holiday the next day, tend to do that. They they have a makeup. Fridays, a lot of people get out of work and then go to the wedding. So they've worked all week. They haven't had that kind of night off thing. You can still have a blast, and I've still had great parties, but I'm cognizant, don't make this about you, make it about your client. And I see a lot of DJs make that mistake. It's about them. It's about them on the mic. It's about them on the music. It's about them on the volume. Every client I ever meet with, I tell them within the first 2 minutes, my goal is to play the right music at the right volume so that mom and grandma can talk 10 feet away from the dance floor and everyone can have a good time. And I don't dance myself. I'm not a big dance guy. But when I go to an event, if the DJ's playing the right music, I'll stay. If it goes down a weird road of music that I just can't handle, or they stick in a groove and a vibe for too long, I get a little bit kind of, this isn't really my thing, my scene. And I'm not playing, I don't think you need to play to that person. But if you make the bride and groom happy and they smile, people will want to stay naturally. They don't want to leave. They came for them. I've never really heard anyone go, hey, what are you doing this Saturday? I'm going to a wedding. My friend's getting married. Oh, no way, really? Yeah, man. Can't wait to dance. Wow, really? I don't hear that. I hear, yeah, I'm going to a wedding. Should be a good time. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to see some friends. Can't wait. And I take that to heart when they say, can't wait to see some friends from college, which means they're going to catch up, which means they're going to talk, which means if I as the DJ can play the right college song that they all partied to, they're all coming out. So I'm cognizant of letting a bride and groom know, tell me what it is that you were into. Tell me what you were into in college, what you were into in high school. Who's in the crowd? Oh, it's a ton of high school, college friends. I need to know those tracks so that when I drop the Snoop track, when I drop the, Return of the Mac, when I drop the Usher, whatever, that's the audience that comes out. And then it's my job as the DJ to build.
Exactly.
But I think we often too times make it a little too personal. And it's funny, most people that see you and I and Brian, it's so bizarre when people have come to a wedding that I do. They're like, you didn't talk very much. Like, I didn't need to.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
I talk here. When when this computer gets shut off, I just talk to the other monitor. There's no show being filmed, but I still talk. That's what I do. But, at a wedding, pick and choose and let your clients know, because they're going to tell if words of wisdom. I ask every client that goes to hire me that I meet with, hey, have you been to a wedding where a DJ did something great or something maybe negative that you're concerned with having at your wedding or not having? Well, my cousin's DJ was terrible. He wouldn't shut up. He wouldn't do this and that. If you've already answered that, if you've already said, I'm there to make the announcements I need to, play at a volume that everyone can understand and hear and not be uncomfortable with, play music that's clean edited so that your grandma won't get upset, and make sure that you smile and have a great time. When they tell you a horror story, it's always too loud, swears, talk too much.
Right.
I've never heard another complaint.
I have a question for you. When you talk to the other monitor when you're off, do you interrupt yourself?
Sometimes. Just so I feel more like I'm, or I'll get to a crescendo with like a Brian thing. I'll pause and then I'll start a whole new topic.
Let's start all over.
I mean, to be honest, Howie.
To be honest, yes.
To
be honest.
Yeah, I'm seeing some great things for 2022. I really am. I think 2022 is going to be a big year. And at least in my market, I've noticed people are very happy to get back to this. And they appreciate the time. And we're not the same DJs we were before COVID. We got to pull away from things. We got to get away with things. We got to make it very like, look at my light show, look at my sound, look at me. I think we're now much more a part of the success of the event. And I know that's always been who we are, but I truly believe doing it right now, it's making you the success of the event is become really, really important. I've had 2 weddings over 120 people this year. Most weddings I've had are 100 or less. And those have been great weddings. Everybody knows everybody, and they're so happy and appreciative to be together that I think it's the new trend.
I do.
Just wanted to drop some just straight up words of wisdom with no real sense of direction on it. Just here are some things we do that I found work really well for me. And that's, I hope it helps. If you have comments, questions, put them in the comments. I will definitely come back when this airs and take a look. And if I can answer them for you, I will. I think we should wrap it, Howie. What do you think?
I think you did a great job.
We'll see
Nice
if this gets,
there.
Talk to my agents after this, see what we want to negotiate now.
Alrighty then.
Talk to John Young. Howie, thank you so much to everyone that watches this. I appreciate the support. If
Thank you, Jay.
we can do anything, let us know.
Alrighty.
All right, buddy.
Good night.